is a powerful force that allows a woman to see beyond what is presented to her. It is through faith that she can discern between what is genuine and what is merely an illusion. A narcissist's love is never real, but to someone who is unaware, it can feel intoxicating and all-consuming. A narcissist knows how to create a perfect illusion, one that mimics love, care, and devotion, but beneath the surface, it is nothing more than manipulation. A woman of faith, however, possesses the wisdom and spiritual insight to recognize the difference between true love and deception. A narcissist begins by presenting an idealized version of love, often known as love bombing. He showers his target with attention, affection, and promises that seem too good to be true. He mirrors her desires, making her feel as though she has met someone who truly understands her heart. But faith is not easily swayed by grand gestures alone. Faith listens to the quiet voice within, the one that whispers warnings when something feels off. A woman deeply rooted in faith does not rely solely on emotions. She leans into discernment, allowing her spirit to guide her in recognizing whether love is authentic or a well-crafted illusion. As time passes, the narcissist's mask begins to slip. His words no longer match his actions, and the promises made so confidently in the beginning start to fade. He becomes inconsistent, unreliable, and manipulative. A woman without spiritual discernment may try to rationalize his behavior, believing that if she loves him more or prays harder, he will return to the version of himself that he initially presented. However, a woman of faith knows that real love does not require endless suffering. She understands that a love built on deceit is not love at all, but a counterfeit version designed to keep her emotionally trapped. The Bible teaches that love is patient and kind, not self-seeking or boastful. A narcissist's love is the opposite. It is demanding, self-centered, and conditional. He offers affection when it serves his needs, withdrawing it when she no longer feeds his ego. But a woman who walks in faith recognizes that God's love is unconditional and unwavering. She knows that love should never leave her feeling unworthy, broken, or confused. She understands that. Real love nurtures rather than depletes, and a man who constantly drains her emotional and spiritual energy is not a man who truly loves her. A narcissist thrives on control and confusion. He distorts reality, making his partner question her own perceptions. This tactic, known as gaslighting, causes a woman to doubt herself, making her more vulnerable to his influence. But faith is the light that cuts through the darkness of manipulation. A woman of faith trusts in divine wisdom rather than the distorted version of reality a narcissist presents. She knows that truth is found in God's word, not in the shifting narratives of a man who seeks to control her. She remains anchored in the understanding that her intuition, her discernment, and her inner knowing are gifts from God designed to protect her from deception. Faith allows a woman to stand firm even when a narcissist attempts to make her feel weak. He may use guilt, shame, or fear to keep her from leaving, but faith reminds her that she was created for more. She is not bound to a relationship that drains her spirit. She does not need to settle for a love that feels like a constant battle. Her faith reassures her that she is worthy of something deeper, something true, something that aligns with the love that God has intended for her. A narcissist may attempt to twist spiritual beliefs to serve his own agenda, using scripture to justify control or submission. But a woman of faith understands that submission does not mean losing oneself in a relationship that is toxic and harmful. She knows that God's plan is not for her to endure emotional and psychological torment under the guise of love. She sees through the manipulative tactics and refuses to allow her faith to be weaponized against her. She recognizes that faith is not blind. Rather, it is the ability to see truth even when lies are disguised as love. A woman of faith understands that discernment is her safeguard against deception. She does not ignore the red flags or excuse behavior that is inconsistent with true love. She knows that a narcissist's love is built on falsehoods, and she trusts in the clarity that her faith provides. She listens to her intuition, knowing that it is often God's way of speaking to her, guiding her away from harm and toward the love she truly deserves. Faith is the anchor that keeps her from drifting into the illusion of love that a narcissist creates. It empowers her to see the truth, even when it is painful, and to trust that real love will never require her to betray herself. Real love is a reflection of God's love, and a woman of faith understands this deeply. She knows that love in its truest form is not based on manipulation, control, or selfish desires. Instead, it is built on trust, kindness, patience, and selflessness. A narcissist, however, does not love in this way. His version of love is conditional, transactional, and rooted in the need to maintain power over others. A woman of faith can recognize the stark difference between what God intends love to be and what a narcissist presents as love. God's love is unconditional, does not waver based on circumstances, nor does it demand endless sacrifices that leave a person feeling drained and unworthy. A narcissist's love, on the other hand, is entirely conditional. It is offered when it benefits him and withdrawn when it no longer serves his needs. A woman of faith knows that real love does not come with hidden terms or expectations. She understands that when love is real, it does not leave her feeling empty or questioning her worth. Instead, it strengthens, encourages, and uplifts. The Bible describes love as patient, kind, and not self-seeking. A narcissist's love, however, is the opposite. It is impatient, unkind, and entirely self-centered. A narcissist loves only when it serves his interests, and he does not hesitate to use love as a tool for manipulation. He may say the right words and perform grand gestures, but beneath the surface, his actions are designed to control rather than to nurture. A woman of faith discerns this difference, understanding that true love aligns with God's example, does not come in waves of affection followed by periods of coldness and cruelty. It is consistent, just as God's love is constant and unwavering. A narcissist does not understand love because he does not understand selflessness. He does not give love freely, but instead demands it in ways that serve his ego. His version of love often requires his partner to shrink herself, to constantly prove her devotion, and to ignore her own needs. A woman of faith knows that this is not the love God intended for her. She knows that she was not created to be diminished in the name of love, but to be cherished and valued as God cherishes his children. True love is built on mutual respect, sacrifice, and a willingness to give without expecting anything in return. God's love for his people is the perfect example of this. It is full of grace, mercy, and compassion. A narcissist's love, however, is transactional. He gives only when he knows he will receive something in return. A woman of faith recognizes that love is not a game to be won or a resource to be rationed. Love flows freely when it is real, and she refuses to accept a version of love that is dictated by selfishness and control. A woman who understands God's love also understands her own worth. She knows that she was created in his image and that she deserves to be loved in the way he is intended. A narcissist often preys on those who do not fully recognize their value, making them believe that love must be earned through suffering and self-sacrifice. But a woman of faith does not fall into this trap. She knows that she does not have to endure emotional turmoil to prove her love. She knows that real love does not leave her feeling exhausted, confused, or broken. Instead, it nourishes her, just as God's love does. Because she knows the true nature of love, a woman of faith is not easily deceived by imitation. She does not mistake intense passion for genuine care or grand gestures for deep commitment. She measures love not by how loudly someone declares it, but by the actions that follow. She understands that true love does not need to be manipulated or forced. It simply exists in its purest form, just as God's love does. When she encounters love that does not reflect God's love, she has the strength to walk away knowing that she is destined for something greater. A narcissist thrives on control, not care. His version of love is not about genuine connection, mutual respect, or emotional support. It is about maintaining power over the person he claims to love. He does not seek a partner, but a source of validation, someone who will feed his ego and comply with his demands. A woman of faith, however, understands the difference between control and care. She knows that true love does not require submission to manipulation, nor does it leave her feeling powerless. Love should be a place of safety and trust, not a battlefield where one person constantly fights to maintain their sense of self. Control is the foundation of a narcissist relationship. He does not offer love freely. Instead, he uses it as a tool to dictate how his partner behaves. In the beginning, he may seem incredibly loving and attentive, giving the illusion of care. He may shower his partner with compliments, affection, and promises of a perfect future, but over time, his actions reveal his true intentions. He begins to exert control in subtle ways, criticizing, isolating, and making his partner feel as though she must constantly prove her worth. His love is not based on mutual growth and support, but on dominance and superiority. A narcissist ensures that his partner becomes emotionally dependent on him. He may alternate between moments of affection and cruelty, keeping her in a constant state of confusion. One moment he is charming and loving, making her feel special and adored. The next he is distant, critical, or even cruel, leaving her desperate to regain his approval. This cycle of reward and punishment is not love, it is control. A woman of faith recognizes this pattern and understands that love should never make her feel anxious, unworthy, or uncertain. True love brings peace, not instability. Unlike a caring partner who respects boundaries and values independence, the narcissist seeks to erode his partner's sense of self. He may disguise control as concern, saying things like, "I just want what's best for you," or "I know what you need better than you do." In reality, his goal is not to care for her, but to break down her confidence so that she relies entirely on him. He may discourage her from pursuing her dreams, belittle her achievements, or make her feel guilty for prioritizing her own happiness. A woman of faith, however, stands firm in her identity. She knows that love does not require her to lose herself, and she refuses to let someone else dictate her worth. A narcissist's control often extends beyond emotional manipulation. He may try to control finances, friendships, or even faith, using guilt and fear to keep his partner from making her own choices. He may twist scripture or spiritual teachings to justify his actions, convincing her that submission to him is the same as obedience to God. But a woman of faith knows that God does not call her to submit to abuse or oppression. She understands that a loving relationship should empower both partners, not place one in a position of servitude. True care is selfless, nurturing, and patient. It is built on trust, not fear. A narcissist, however, does not care in the true sense. He only cares about what he can gain. His expressions of love are conditional based on whether his partner is meeting his needs. The moment she stops feeding his ego or challenges his authority, his affection disappears. A woman of faith knows her worth. She understands that she is not defined by a man's opinion, nor is her value determined by how much she sacrifices for someone who does not truly love her. She knows that she was created in the image of God, designed with purpose, strength, and dignity. A narcissist may try to make her feel small, unworthy, or dependent on his approval, but she refuses to believe the lie. Her worth is not something that can be given or taken away by any man. It is something that comes from within, something that God himself has already established. A narcissist preys on self-doubt. He thrives on making his partner feel like she is not enough, never loving enough, never kind enough, never understanding enough. He manipulates her into believing that if she just tries harder, loves deeper, or changes herself, he will finally give her the love she craves. But a woman of faith does not fall for this deception. She knows that love is not something that should be earned through endless suffering. She understands that she is already worthy of love and respect, just as she is. She does not need to bend, shrink, or mold herself into what someone else wants in order to be valued. A narcissist uses devaluation as a weapon, tearing down his partner's self-esteem so that she becomes easier to control. He may use words to wound, comparing her to others, dismissing her feelings, or making her feel like she is too emotional, too needy, or too difficult. Over time, this erosion of self-worth can make a woman doubt herself, question her instincts, and even lose sight of who she truly is. But a woman of faith holds on to her identity. She knows that she is fearfully and wonderfully made, and no man has the power to change that truth. She does not allow his words to define her because she knows that her true value comes from God. When a woman understands her worth, she stops tolerating mistreatment. She recognizes that love should not hurt, and she refuses to settle for a relationship that leaves her feeling broken. A narcissist relies on the hope that his partner will stay no matter how much he takes from her. But a woman of faith knows that walking away is not weakness, it is strength. She understands that she was not created to be used, manipulated, or diminished. She knows that God's plan for her includes love that is real, love that uplifts, and love that does not require her to lose herself. A woman of faith also understands that her worth is not tied to whether or not a man chooses her. A narcissist may try to make her feel like she is only valuable if she is in a relationship with him, as if her identity depends on his presence in her life. But she rejects this lie. She knows that she is complete on her own, that she is loved by God, and that she does not need to chase after someone who does not see her true worth. She walks with confidence, knowing that she deserves more than empty promises and conditional affection because she knows her worth. A woman of faith sets boundaries. She does not allow disrespect, dishonesty, or manipulation to take root in her life. She understands that it is not selfish to protect her peace, to say no, or to walk away from relationships that do not align with her values. A narcissist fears a woman who knows her worth because she cannot be easily controlled. She sees through his games, refuses to be manipulated, and stands firmly in the truth of who she is. She knows that she is loved, valued, and deserving of a love that reflects God's love, pure, selfless, and unwavering. Healing begins with boundaries. A woman of faith understands that in order to heal from the wounds of a toxic relationship, she must first establish firm and unwavering boundaries. Making his partner feel guilty for standing up for herself and convincing her that saying no is an act of betrayal. But a woman rooted in faith knows that boundaries are not selfish, they are necessary. They are a declaration of self-worth, a way of protecting her heart, mind, and spirit from further harm. A narcissist pushes boundaries from the very beginning. At first, he may disguise it as love, calling constantly, demanding all of her time, insisting that they are soulmates who should never be apart. But over time, this behavior shifts from affection to control. He may demand explanations for everything she does, become angry when she spends time with others, or use guilt to keep her from making her own choices. A woman of faith, however, recognizes these red flags. She knows that real love does not require sacrificing her sense of self. She stands firm, refusing to allow another person to dictate how she lives, what she believes, or who she is allowed to be. Healing requires breaking free from the cycle of manipulation. A narcissist keeps his partner trapped through a pattern of love bombing, devaluation, and intermittent affection. Just when she feels ready to walk away, he pulls her back in with apologies, false promises, and temporary kindness. But a woman of faith learns to see through this cycle. She understands that true change is shown through consistent actions, not words spoken in moments of desperation. She sets a boundary. No more second chances for someone who repeatedly disrespects her heart. One of the hardest but most important boundaries a woman can set is limiting or cutting contact with a narcissist. He will not respect her decision to walk away, nor will he easily let go of his control. He may try to lure her back with nostalgia, guilt, or even threats. But she stands firm, knowing that healing cannot happen if she continues to allow him access to her life. She removes him from her space, blocks his attempts to reach her, and refuses to engage in the emotional games he plays. She prioritizes her healing above his desires. Boundaries are not just about keeping toxic people out. They are also about creating space for self-care, growth, and spiritual renewal. A woman of faith understands that. Healing is not just about removing the narcissist from her life. It is about rebuilding herself. She spends time in prayer, seeks guidance from God, surrounds herself with people who uplift her rather than tear her down. She learns to trust herself again, to listen to her intuition, and to embrace the freedom that comes with no longer being controlled. Healing is not immediate, and there will be moments of doubt. She reminds herself that boundaries are a form of self-respect, and that anyone who truly loves her will honor them. She refuses to lower her standards or accept less than she deserves. She understands that healing is not just about moving on from the narcissist. It is about stepping into the life that God intended for her, one where love is real, respect is mutual, and peace replaces the chaos she once endured. Freedom comes through faith and strength. A woman of faith understands that true freedom is not just about leaving a toxic relationship, but about reclaiming her power, her peace, and her purpose. A narcissist seeks to keep his partner trapped emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. He uses fear, guilt, and manipulation to make her feel like she cannot survive without him. But a woman who walks in faith knows that she is never truly alone. She draws strength from God, knowing that He has called her to a life of love, joy, and freedom, not one of control and suffering. Breaking free from a narcissist is not just a physical separation. It is a deep internal transformation. A woman who has been in a narcissistic relationship often carries emotional scars, self-doubt, anxiety, and the remnants of the lies she was told about herself. But faith gives her the power to reject those lies. She reminds herself that she is strong, capable, and worthy of a love that reflects God's love. She refuses to be defined by her past, knowing that her future holds far greater things than the pain she has endured. Freedom requires letting go of the need for closure from the narcissist. A woman of faith understands that she will never receive the apology, validation, or explanation she might crave. A narcissist does not take responsibility for his actions, nor does he offer genuine remorse. But she does not need his validation to heal. She finds her closure in her faith, knowing that she does not need a man's permission to move forward. She releases the desire for justice or revenge, trusting that God will handle what she cannot. As she steps into her freedom, she learns to trust herself again. A narcissist works hard to break down his partner's confidence, making her question her worth, her choices, and even her reality. But faith restores what was lost. She listens to her intuition, embraces her own voice, and walks with confidence, knowing that she is no longer bound by the limitations he tried to place on her. She begins to dream again, to hope again, to live again, free from the weight of his control. Freedom also comes through forgiveness, not for the narcissist's sake, but for her own. She does not excuse his actions or pretend they did not harm her, but she refuses to carry the burden of resentment. She understands that forgiveness is not about reconciling with him, but about releasing herself from the emotional chains he left behind. She chooses peace over anger, love over bitterness, and healing over hatred. She forgives not because he deserves it, but because she deserves to be free. Most importantly, a woman of faith embraces the truth that she was never meant to live in bondage to a toxic love. She was created for something greater. She walks away from the past with her head high, knowing that she is stepping into a future filled with love, joy, and the freedom to be exactly who God made her to be. Her faith has carried her through the storm, and now she stands in the light, strong, whole, and free. A woman of faith knows that real love is not built on control, manipulation, or selfishness. It is rooted in respect, kindness, and truth. She understands that a narcissist's love is never real because it is conditional, self-serving, and designed to diminish rather than uplift. But she also knows that she was not created to suffer in the name of love. She was created to be cherished, valued, and free. Through faith, she finds the strength to walk away from toxic love, to set boundaries, and to heal. She refuses to let a narcissist define her worth, knowing that her value comes from God, not from the approval of a man who seeks to control her. She embraces her identity with confidence, recognizing that love should never require her to shrink, silence herself, or endure pain to prove her devotion. Her healing journey is not easy, but it is worth. She learns to trust herself again, to find peace in her own presence, and to build a life that is full of joy, purpose, and genuine love. She does not look back with regret, but with gratitude for the lessons that have made her strong. She forgives, not to excuse the past, but to free herself from its weight. And as she moves forward, she steps fully into the life that God intended for her. A life where love is pure, respect is mutual, and faith is her guiding light. She is not broken. She is not lost. She is free, whole, and stronger than ever before.